Hey guys, it's Kevin, my review for this week of Big Brother 21, episodes 27 through 29, and I was looking forward to this week mainly because I just didn't really know the way things were going to play out. Like I said, the second half of this game has been largely unpredictable. That's not necessarily a great thing, though. Like, most of the moves we've wanted to happen have not really taken place, and as a result, the game has not been all that interesting, and it's weeks like this that really do show why that's the case, because I'm not gonna lie, this week was kind of a snooze fest. There's very little to talk about that went on this week in terms of gameplay. There's very little to talk about in terms of events overall. There's really just not a lot that happened this week, and this could be like one of the shortest Big Brother videos I've ever done. I don't know if it's going to be as short as like the one I did for Big Brother 20 last year that was 10 minutes because I didn't want to do like a 30-minute video on it, but it is definitely going to be on the shorter side because I just don't really have a lot to cover here, so we're just going to get into it, starting off with Sunday's episode. Which, just not really a lot to talk about here, honestly. You know, Holly's HOH now, and very early on, she makes her target clear in Nick. She knows, you know, what Christie did last week, it did work. They're realizing that Nick is someone that has no loyalty whatsoever. He's playing both sides, and they need to get him out for that reason. And that is a good reason, I will say. Holly's reasoning for getting out Nick is a good one. The fact that he does have zero loyalty. The fact that she really doesn't know where he's coming from. That definitely is a good reasoning. So I don't really have a problem with that. What I do have a problem with is Christie, for some reason, having a problem with being the pawn here. I mean, she literally said that she would, you know, help them go after Nick and things like that, and that's exactly what they're doing. But for some reason, one, I don't really understand why they needed her as a pawn. Like, Christie is someone that people have wanted out for a while. Why are they putting her up and not someone like Tommy, who will easily, you know, be just a pawn? Like, they could easily just put him up and nobody's going to get out Tommy because he's pretty much on good terms with everyone. I don't know why they just go for, why they wouldn't just go for Tommy. Also, why is Christie upset about this? I really don't understand it. I feel like she should have seen something like this coming. Also, I have to say, last week I talked about how I thought Jackson getting Sis out over Christie was initially a good move, and honestly, after this week, I don't believe that at all. I think this was a really dumb move, and I don't understand why he kept her around in this game, especially when Tommy and Christie are still kind of gunning for them. Like, sure, he trusts Tommy for some reason, but the only reason they kept Christie around was to go after Nick, which, I mean, that's not even really what ended up happening. Holly ended up winning. Now, obviously, she didn't expect to win that HOH, but at this point, it's like, why do they want to keep Christie around? There's really no reason to keep her here. Jackson could have easily gotten her out. He could have struck something up with Sis, and I don't understand why he needed... Like I said, it was really just the satisfaction of Sis leaving. That's why I was happy that Christie was, you know, saying, because I didn't want Sis to win the game, but in hindsight, I just don't understand what benefits them from keeping Christie around. It seems like nothing has really changed here. They want her to be the pawn. She's not on their side. She's against. She thinks that they're targeting her. I mean, nothing has changed in terms of that. So I don't understand what really was precluding them from doing this, other than, I guess, maybe production told him not to. I honestly have no idea why he made this decision. I know he got into like a fight with Sis and things like that, but like, why is that have any reason towards why he need to keep Christie around? Her pitch was weak. I understand, yes, they think Nick is a threat now, and he absolutely was, but honestly, keeping Christie around did absolutely nothing, and we very much saw that this week. And I mean, when the best thing I can say about this week is this twist with Nicole, Cliff, and Jessica, that because they were the lowest, you know, in the whole competition, they have to now throw pies at people. When that's the most entertaining thing going on this week, that's when you know this week isn't really all that great. But I will say, this was a lot of fun. I actually did like this twist. I like what they did here. I like getting to see them, you know, pie each other. I like the whole thing going on with Nicole and Jackson, how she couldn't get him, but then eventually she did get him. I thought that was a lot of fun for sure, and it made for some really fun moments throughout this week. But again, that's really the only thing to talk about that I actually really enjoyed from this week. The rest of it pretty much is a snooze fest overall. But of course, the big thing we were all wondering is what was going to happen with this America's Prankster twist. And as expected, absolutely nothing. That's the answer. Absolutely nothing came from it. Nick is voted as America's Prankster. For some reason, I have no idea why they would pick Nick. I heard people say, oh, he's a really good choice because, you know, he's not going to do what Holly and Jackson want him to do. He's going to go after who he wants to go after. The thing is, though, it just so happens the person that Nick wants to go after is the same person that Holly and Jackson were planning on nominating. So he puts up Christie, and it really means nothing in the end. And this, again, was just such a misfire. I don't know how many times I need to keep saying it. Introducing twists like this and expecting something game-changing in a season like this, it's going to amount to nothing. There is yet to be a twist this season that drastically impacts the game beyond the whole camp director thing, which was just a total fucking mess overall. Aside from that, there has been and that wasn't even, like, for the better. I mean, that got rid of David, remember? Like, David could have had more of a chance in this game if it wasn't for that. So, like, even that isn't really a good thing. But this is easily one of the lamest yet. I can't believe it turned out the way it did. I mean, I wasn't looking forward to it, but I was at least expecting something to happen here. Like, maybe something along the lines of, like, the hacker twist last season, where, like, it started off really interesting, and then it just kind of pittered out into nothing. Like, that's kind of what I was expecting here. But no, right off the bat, I mean, it means absolutely nothing. I mean, Nick just goes right after Christie, and that's kind of it. There's not much else going on Sunday. You know, Holly got what she wanted, pretty much, and that's all there really is to say there. I mean, besides that, we do get this whole segment about Jackson and his watermelon addiction, and again, if this is the thing they're going to use to get us to really like Jackson and give him that golden boy edit, they are doing a piss poor job at doing so, because this is just really dumb, this whole thing with the watermelon. It's clear they're only doing this because they have barely anything to show. I say this every single season, when we get things like this late into the season, it just shows how uneventful things really are, and this is just a really dumb sort of thing to do. I understand this is like a meme and things like that, but it just seemed like Big Brother was like giving into it, and it's like, come on, you have nothing better to show us than just Jackson eating watermelons constantly. There's nothing funny about it. It's really just really strange, and I don't know what the joke really was here. It's the same thing with like Jackson sayings last week. I mean, it's just, there's nothing funny being said here. I don't understand why they have to keep doing these weird editing things, but they do them every single season. I'm never really the biggest fan of them. I like them early on. Like, if you want to do this early on, that's fine, but this late into the game, again, it just shows how little they have to work with, and it's just kind of sad overall. And Wednesday's episode, once again, not really a lot to talk about here. I mean, the biggest thing is that for some reason, like I said, Christie is upset that she's on the block, even though it was the prankster that put her up and not Holly or Jackson. You know, she seems to think that that's the case, but then she later talks about how she knows for a fact that Nick is the prankster. So, again, I don't know Christie is just completely confusing in terms of emotions, you know. Like I said, I think she has a very good chance of winning because of how well she was able to, come out of this. Also because she's been on the block like 3 times now, and both, you know, all times she has been able to get out of it somehow. You know, last week she was the target. The week before that she could have been the target, but then Tommy saved her. So I really do see Christie doing very well. It's just emotion-wise, I mean, she just cannot make up her mind on where her loyalties lie, who she's mad at. It just seems like the littlest thing sets her off. And again, she volunteered like to be a a pawn. Like, that was the agreement. I don't really understand why she is acting this way, but whatever. Not much to say there. Throughout this entire week, though, Nick has zero campaign whatsoever. He has a bit more of one in Thursday, but he really doesn't have much to say here at all, and that's why this week is so dull in that sense, because Nick is just so okay with himself heading out the door, and I don't really understand why. I don't really get why anyone would want to just be okay with themselves being out the door, even if you know for a fact there is no way to possibly save yourself. I don't really understand why you would continually just accept your fate in that way. Like, sure, again, like I said, like, there are times where you just can't do anything, and your hands, your hands are tied and things like that. But you should at least try, and Nick doesn't really try to do anything here. He doesn't try to foster any relationships. He doesn't try to maybe strike up something like Nicole and Cliff and all them, because he's pretty close with Nicole. He's pretty close with, Tommy. He could have struck something up with them, but he absolutely doesn't, and I don't really get why. So yeah, that was just very disappointing overall. Other than that, the only thing to really talk about is the POV here. Zingbot did return. I was excited to see what he did, but honestly, most of his zings were pretty weak, I have to say. I thought the cast deserved way worse than what he did give them. I did think his one to Tommy was good, where he called him an attention whore. I liked that. But him talking about things like Nick's haircut and, Cliff being, being fat and things like that, they just weren't really all that funny. Jackson's was pretty weak. Holly's wasn't really that great either. It was really personal stuff. Like, most of the time when Zingbot comes in, it's something that has been like a joke that we all recognize, but like the house guests don't, and that's kind of that's what's so funny about all, is like the dramatic irony. Like, they think that this is just Zingbot saying it, but like we also think this way, and I thought that'd be the case, but not really. Ironically, the one that was the cruelest was Nicole. I thought he was unnecessarily cruel to Nicole, where he's telling her, like, she has no friends, no allies. It's like, come on, Zingbot. Like, there's one thing to zing someone, but this is just straight up bullying. Like, I don't know what that was all about, and I really did feel bad for Nicole. Like, she's really the only, like, pure house guest in there right now that has done absolutely nothing wrong, and no, she's not playing a good game, but I would be okay with her winning because, well, she's done absolutely nothing to get blood on her hands. She's done absolutely nothing to put herself in a, in a harmful position, and I give her props for that. There was only one time where she was possibly out the door, but other than that, she's been doing really well, and I would honestly be okay with her winning just because everyone else kind of sucks right now. So I'd be fine if Nicole did end up winning, just because of the fact that she's done very little to hurt herself in the game, and that is enough of a reason, I think, for her to win, just because of how weak the gameplay has been, where there really hasn't been any good gameplay this season, to be honest. So yeah, I don't know why Zingbot was so cruel. I also hated the story that was going on here. They were trying so hard to, like, be so woke and political with the whole, oh, Zingbot's colluding with, like, America. Like, it did not work at all. I don't know what they were trying to do here. I know they did the whole Zingbot for president thing, like in Big Brother 18, but since then, it seems like they've really exhausted, like, what to do with Zingbot from then on, and it's just not working anymore, honestly. Like, even when Zingbot isn't that great, that's when, like, at least in Big Brother 19, still the worst season of the show, I might add, he at least did a really great job at roasting those house guests and giving them their just desserts, but here, it was honestly pretty weak, and there just isn't a lot to talk about. Jackson ends up winning veto. He decides not to use it because they don't know what they're going to do, even though Holly said that she would put up Jessica if they were to take down Nick or Christie. For some reason, they say, oh, we didn't know what to do, when that's not the case at all, but whatever. He doesn't use the veto. They're both on the block, and basically, Christie doesn't think she's leaving because Nick's there. Nick doesn't feel like he's leaving because Christie's there. Whatever. Not much else to talk about there. So now we get to Thursday, and look, out of the 3 episodes, Thursdays was definitely the least boring, but there still wasn't really a lot going on. Nick's campaign here is, like I said, he didn't really have much of one throughout the week, but he does have one. He does kind of show it on Thursdays, and it's terrible. It's probably one of the worst campaigns I've seen in this show. It is simply just, he goes to Jackson and says, look, I will protect you. You know, you can get me out if you want, you can backdoor me, but I will protect you for a couple weeks. And he compares himself to like a condom and things like that, and it's like, dude, like, this is not like a fun thing. Like, this is your life in the house. Like, do you not realize that if you actually had a good campaign here and you make a case for why Christie is a more dangerous player, you could actually get out of this week. You could actually end up, you know, saving yourself. But no, he doesn't take it seriously at all. He comes up with the lamest campaign ever. He thinks that it's like the greatest thing ever. I have no idea why he would look at this as anything less, as anything more than just a last-ditch effort, but that's very much what it seemed like. But from his perspective, it didn't seem that way. Like, he seemed to think this was like a great way to keep himself in when it was particularly horrible, and he does absolutely nothing to secure his fate in the house. Christie, on the other hand, does by not really making any waves, because she knows that Nick probably was the prankster. She knows that Nick wants her out, so she does what she can to stay quiet at that point. And I think that and you know, also the fact that Tommy is now closer with her again. You know, he knows that he can keep Christie in his back pocket because she's really all he has left at this point. You know, that's the other reason why Nick does find himself where he does at the end of this week. And again, I think it's mainly just because how awful his campaign really was here. That being said, as shitty of a campaign as this was, there is one thing that actually could have saved Nick's game. And again, it might not have done a lot, but it could have potentially saved him and at least given him a shot of getting out of this week clean, and that is to out Tommy. And look, he kind of does it. Like, he talks to Nicole about how he's been getting bad vibes from Tommy, and he doesn't understand why Tommy would advocate for Christie staying when him and Nick are supposed to be, you know, when him and Tommy are supposed to be aligned together. And he, you know, knows that Tommy voted for Jack instead of Jackson, which was the original, you know, which is what he thought was going on. So overall, he's just not on very good terms with Tommy, but he doesn't do really anything with this. He should have gone to Holly or Jackson and tell them, like, look, the person that you think is, you know, the safest and the person that you think you can trust the most, you really can't. He's working with Christie, and that's really it at this point. But he didn't do that for some reason, and I don't understand why. He clearly had all the signs that were pointing to Tommy not being someone that he should trust, not being someone that he should be aligned with, but for some reason, he did not do that. He did not follow through and try to ruin Tommy's game in that way. I don't really understand why he didn't take that initiative, but Nicole tries to advocate for him as much as she possibly can, but unfortunately, it really doesn't do much in the end. Nick does end up getting himself evicted, and just not really a lot to say from there. You know, he knew it was coming for a while. He even mentions Bella. I mean, Bella's like done with you. Like that ended like way before it even started. So I don't know why he thinks they're still a thing, especially when he was cozying up to Sis like a couple weeks ago. But whatever. That's really all to talk about in terms of things that do go down this week. I did like the whole gag, though, with the clowns, mainly just to see Nicole's reactions. That was a lot of fun to watch, for sure. Again, it was a good way of exhausting Prank Week as much as they possibly could, because, let's face it, it was kind of a fail. Aside from the stuff with the pie and the clown stuff, it really was a fail, but this was a nice little capper to it all that I did overall get a nice kick out of. We do get a little bit of the jury, which, I mean, again, when we're getting it this early on, that's when you know they really do not have much to show here. the whole thing we do get here with the jury was okay, I guess. I mean, there was some weird, like, sexual tension between Kat and Jack. I don't really know what that was about, but seeing Sis come in there and then just not really a lot happening overall, and it just seems like everything's fine. I just don't really have much to talk about there. So, moving forward again, not really a lot to talk about. A lot of bad gameplay going on, I must say. Christie being kept in the house, I still don't really understand why they would do that. One, because, you know, I don't really understand why they'd want to keep her here. And again, Nick could have made them look even dumber. I mean, he could have said, like, why would you want to keep Christie, someone who is Tommy's closest ally in the house? If he would have done that, then Christie could have absolutely found herself out the door. But because of the fact that Nick did nothing, Christie is still in the house. I do still think she has a very good chance of winning. I think we are very much looking at a Tommy Christie final two at some point. I think that definitely has possibilities here. I hate saying it because I definitely don't want that. I don't really find that interesting at all, but I could very well see a scenario like that happening just because of how good of a position Christie has found herself in. Again, she has been taken off the block. Well, not taken off the block, but she has escaped the block like 3 times up till this point. So I don't really know how much more, you know, I don't really see anything that bad happening to Christie unless she finds herself gone in the next, like, 3 weeks. I see Christie going pretty far. And, again, it just makes Jackson and Holly look even dumber that they didn't try to take that shot. They got out Nick. And, again, Holly's reasoning for getting out Nick is a good one. But I really wish Nick could have done something to save himself. It just would have made for a far more interesting week than what we got here, and that just wasn't really the case. Moving forward, like I said, it's pretty straightforward. Nothing's really changed. You got Jackson and Holly. Pretty much everyone's still against them. And then you have this alliance of Christie, Tommy, Nicole, and Cliff. That's still a thing. Those 4 are very much still working together. But you also do have Nicole working with Holly and Jackson. I don't know if she's still going to continue to because she was kind of just doing that to secure Nick's safety. But I guess we'll have to see the way things turn out there moving forward. I was also not very pleased with the way they characterized Jackson. I still do not like the fact that he's getting this golden boy edit. That's not at all who he is. And look, I don't know if this is going to come up next week, but let's just say him and Holly's relationship is not really all that great. They're trying to make them look like this power couple when it's far more toxic. And if it's not brought up next week, then I will definitely talk about it. I mean, regardless of if it's brought up next week, you know, I will definitely be covering it for sure. But I do hope the show does actually show what's going on there because it's very toxic, and I don't really like the way things are playing out there at all. But I guess we'll just have to see the way things go. But again, no matter what happens, I will definitely be talking about that next week for sure. The one thing to get excited about, though, is that next week is going to be a double eviction. So, as usual, I will talk about everything that happened on Sunday and Wednesday's episode on Wednesday night, and then you will get to, you will hear my coverage of all of that, and then, of course, I will talk about the double eviction on Friday, probably, most likely. That's when that will go up. But, again, I hate saying it, but at this point, it's just I'm watching the show out of sheer obligation again. It's not very interesting. There's not a lot happening that I really care about. This final 7 is very, very disappointing. And I also don't really know how the next few weeks are going to play out. You know, usually what happens is, it's the double eviction. We're going to be down to 5 people at that point. So is there just not going to be, like, the 1 week where there's 2 eviction nights? Or are we going to have a full week of a 5 and a full week of a 4? I mean, I kind of like that. I'm not totally against that idea. You know, maybe they could do something like that. But I guess we'll have to see the way things play out. Either way, guys, that's really it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know what you guys thought of this week overall. Leave your thoughts on it. We'll see you guys in my next video. And we'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.